Hello and welcome to another edition of the Consumer Quarter. I'm Simon Palin. On the show today, Australia's surfboard industry is being squeezed by a wave of cheap imports. And in the lead up to Christmas, struggling retailers have their hopes pinned on a lift in consumer sentiment.
It means that more people are positive than are negative. This is the first time we've had that since May this year.
But first, most of us are never too far from our mobile phones these days, and new research shows mobiles are playing a fast-growing role in our shopping habits. Retail inquiries on mobile devices like smartphones and iPads have jumped 220% over the last year, but many Australian retailers are ignoring the trend.
We use them to connect with others, to take photos, even play games. And now mobile phones are fast becoming the shopper's best friend.
Sometimes when I'm out and about, I'll just do price comparisons on my phone.
Mainly fashion, clothing, homewares.
Search engine Google has much to gain from the move to online shopping. Its own research found we're doing it in droves.
We're now at a point where we have 1 in 4 shoppers using smartphones to ask questions about products or retailers.
Australia has the second fastest rate of smartphone take-up in the world. By the end of this year, half of us will have one. But Australian businesses are slow to respond. Many of their websites are not mobile user-friendly.
Our research estimates that 80% of retailers don't have a website that's optimised for a mobile device. And really what optimised means it has to be visible on a small screen.
That's Ross McDonald there. But there are some who say there's far too much hype around mobile and internet shopping because still only a relatively small amount of actual purchases are done on the internet. The rest are done in-store. Here's retail analyst Peter Ryan.
Well, at best, right now, e-commerce and mobile e-commerce represent, at the best case scenario, 6% of Australian retail. So that's the size of the prize. For a lot of retailers, all they'll be doing is fragmenting their own share or adding to their cost base for no gain. So why would you do it? Why would you spend the extra amount of money unless there's a competitive reason to do so? Now, at some point in time, our retailer is going to break from the pack and they're going to start doing some really, really intelligent things as far as online is concerned and mobile e-commerce is concerned, and that'll force everybody to follow. But right now, that competitive threat really hasn't materialised.
Are many Australians actually buying goods on their mobile phones? I mean, we check our mobile phones, check the weather, maybe check some news headlines, but are we really buying things off our phones?
The short answer to that is yes, notably in things like tickets. You know, if you talk to Event Cinemas, they'll tell you that their iPad app and their iPhone app are doing incredibly well at selling tickets. Those sorts of things where there's no real advantage in the customer to go to a vendor to buy something makes a lot of sense. It's convenient, and from the retailer's point of view, there's no gain in them getting you to go out of your way to go to the ticket booth to buy the ticket. In fact, if anything, it's a lower cost for them to do it online because there's no labour. But generally speaking in retail, we want you in the store, because if you're in the store, you have the opportunity to have a look at other things, to buy some other things as well as the single item.
So the bottom line is you think that mobile commerce suits some retailers, but it doesn't necessarily complement the business model of some other retailers.
I think there are a number of categories where it makes a heck of a lot of sense, where it provides efficiencies to both the retailer and the consumer. But other areas of retail, we want you to come to the store. And to be perfectly honest, you know, retail's 3,500 years old. Human beings like going into stores. They like the community aspects of it, the social interaction aspects of it. They like being able to smell and scratch and sniff and touch and feel and try things on. And so there's a lot of advantages to bricks and mortar retail.
All right, Peter Ryan, thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
That's Peter Ryan there. Well, as the take-up of smartphones continues at a rapid rate, there's been a huge jump in complaints about telecommunication companies. Consumer groups say it's time for new laws and tougher penalties to keep the telcos in check.
A 10-day trip to New York could be a dream getaway for many, but for part-time sales assistant Hannah Stanton, it led to the phone bill from hell.
$7,500 is just huge. It costs more than my trip.
Ms Stanton says she was careful but occasionally used global roaming to access the internet.
I don't think I was really told how expensive using your phone for like even a short amount of time really is.
The Communications Consumer Action Network is examining her bill and the bills of many, many others. Almost 200,000 customers lodged complaints with the Telecommunications Ombudsman in the past year, up by almost 20%. Most are about mobile phones.
We've seen increased complaints about billing disputes, we've seen increased complaints about unexpectedly high bills, and with smartphones and other mobile phones, increased complaints about faults.
The industry spokesman John Stanton says a massive increase in the use of smartphones and tablets was a big contributor.
What we saw was an unprecedented growth in the use of data, particularly on mobile devices, and that drove a number of complaints.
The telecommunications industry says it's been a disappointing year, but things are improving, and that a proposed new code of conduct will offer consumers more protection than ever before. But that still involves self-regulation.
We believe that unless the regulator steps in and regulates, introduces a standard or determination that's linked with penalties, then the level of complaints will not go down.
The consumer group says offending telcos should face fines of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, in the lead up to Christmas, the global economy is filled with uncertainty and retailers everywhere are nervous. But there's evidence consumers are starting to feel more optimistic. The latest consumer sentiment figures have risen to a 6-month high after the recent interest rate cut. The Westpac Melbourne Institute Consumer Sentiment Index for November has risen more than 6%.
It means that more people are positive than are negative. And this is the first time we've had that since May this year.
The lift in sentiment is much needed as many Australian retailers continue to struggle, and it comes at a crucial time in the lead up to Christmas.
It is simply an uptick in sentiment, but compared to this time last year, it's significantly better than the level of confidence that we saw then.
Well, earlier I hit the road to personally ask a few consumers how they're feeling in the lead up to Christmas.
Yeah, I'm feeling fine. Yeah, I think everything's good.
You just have to look around you at the moment. Everyone's down here spending money, so I feel pretty good about it.
You're just wary of what's happening within the market, what's happening in Europe and stuff like that. I think people are still very concerned that as much as, yes, they might be cutting rates and things like that, that who knows what's going to happen over there and how we're going to be affected.
I don't go shopping much. That's probably not particularly helpful to you, sorry.
But that's probably why you're feeling good about things.
Well, that may be it. That may be it.
Well, Australia's gym sector is expected to remain fighting fit despite the planned sale of the country's largest gym, Fitness First. Analysts at Ibis World expect the demand for gyms will continue to grow as Australians' waistlines bulge like never before. Last financial year, 2.5 million Australians visited gyms. That's around double the amount of people doing swimming. But a lot of that exercise is going to waste as Australians continue to eat vast amounts of junk food. Many of us find junk food irresistible, but could it be addictive? A visiting junk food expert from the US thinks so.
There's more and more research suggesting that this addictive process does in fact take place, and I think this will change the world debate on food and the behaviour of the food industry.
Kelly Bronwell says increasing evidence that junk food is addictive could make some companies which promote junk food vulnerable to more legal action. Well, beer consumption in Australia may be falling, but among the brewers, the title of Australia's best beer is as hotly contested as ever. Some of the country's biggest breweries have battled it out with smaller craft producers, and with a record number of entries this year, it was thirsty work for the nation's top beer judges.
Going for gold in the Battle of the Brews. More than 50 beers vied for the title of Top Drop. The judges begin by looking at appearance.
They're drinking the beer effectively with their eyes when they start off with. So they're looking for the colour, the way in which the beer laces.
They then examine everything from aroma to drinkability, finding flavours you might never think were possible in your favourite beverage.
It's got lots of bananas, banana aromas. We've got a little bit of musk. We've had some smoky bacon, and we've even had some cloves.
And how do you land the dream judging job?
It's years and years of painstaking work and training.
The right coloured ribbon can mean a lot for the winning brewer.
Whether it was, $1,000 or $10,000, the publicity that was generated was really positive for us. Sales immediately went up.
But the beer business isn't going so well for everyone, with sales flat across the country. Beer connoisseurs say the brew now rivals wine in terms of variety and quality. And while beer consumption is down in Australia, they say appreciation is growing. There's just one important difference between the amber ale and plonk.
I just don't think you need to wear a cravat to drink it.
This year's prize went to a pale ale from New South Wales.
And part of the reason why beer consumption is falling is because Australians are increasingly choosing premium drinks instead. They are more expensive. Industry researchers say Australia's alcohol spending is expected to increase by more than 15% over 5 years. As a nation, we're expected to spend $25 billion on alcohol next year, and per capita, our alcohol consumption has now overtaken consumption in the UK and the US. And finally, the nation's surfboard industry is on the verge of being wiped out by the wave of cheap imports flooding the market. Some of Australia's best craftsmen say they're struggling to stay afloat, and if demand continues to dwindle, they'll have to shut up shop.
Stuart D'Arcy shaped the boards that carried Lane Beachley to 7 world titles. But next month, he'll close the doors on his Gold Coast factory for good, unable to compete with the influx of cheap imported boards.
Your shaper knew everything because they were surfers to start with. And there were the guys you respected at the beach, and they could actually, like a doctor, prescribe you something to make your surfing go better.
A new board from Asia costs about $200. Australian-based shapers charge more than 3 times that amount. Boards made in China and Thailand now account for 40 to 50% of sales.
There's so many surfers in Australia, and if everyone's buying boards in China, then we're just killing our own industry.
And tough competition isn't the only thing blowing manufacturers out of the water. The high dollar and cost of raw materials are wiping out profit margins.
I think a lot of guys are just selling boards for whatever they can get for them just to get a cash flow and maybe get some food on the table.
The importers argue they're selling quality surfboards designed by Australian shapers, but a task force established by the industry isn't convinced. It wants imported boards to be stamped with their country of origin, higher tariffs and a government-subsidised apprenticeship scheme. At its peak, D'Arcy's business employed 10 people. While he'll continue to make boards, it'll be in a much smaller shed rather than a factory.
That's Glenn Palmer reporting there, and that's all for this edition of the Consumer Quarter. Thank you for joining us. If you've got any story ideas or feedback, please get in touch on Facebook, search for the Consumer Quarter page and click like if you want to be kept up to date. And I'll see you next time.